or what have you. So I would like to try to move that towards the top of an action item rather than in a year, see how the organization's doing.
Okay, so are you asking for an agenda item of this council to formulate recommendations, or are you just suggesting that interested parties get in touch with the GVRHA to let them know your thoughts?
I'd like to tie our desires to our financial contribution. And I don't know how to accomplish that.
Yeah, it seems like, because the appointment and a vote would probably be the best way to accomplish that. Like I would be able to express at a meeting that I would want that as an agenda item or something like that.
Okay.
Probably a better vehicle, but I am struggling for a way to connect that to the money in some way.
Right.
But I do, I
They're
see what you're
asking
saying.
us for more
Yeah.
money to do their job, and
Right,
their job wasn't being done well with the previous director.
right. Yeah. And actually I've kind of talked about it before, how like it'd be cool to have more in general as a practice sort of consensus built from the entire council. That kind of helps facilitate sort of my marching orders on that board. I think that would be a really useful way to make that more useful, a good way of making that more useful for council.
Well, if that's how you're going to proceed and you feel that is of value, I'm fine supporting this.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk a lot more about it too. That'd be great.
All right, cool.
Move to approve the Second Amendment to the intergovernmental agreement establishing the Gunnison Valley Regional Housing Authority.
And for the mayor to sign the agreement.
Oh, is there an agreement that has to be signed? Okay.
Yeah.
And authorizing the mayor's signature on our behalf.
Second. All right, we have a motion from Janet and a second from Steve to authorize the mayor to sign Second Amendment to the intergovernmental agreement establishing the Gunnison Valley Regional Housing Authority. Any further discussion? Tiffany?
Alec,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Mayor Kempton.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is the master plan draft amendment report. Deputy Community Development Director Hillary Semenik.
Thanks.
So in your packet, in the packet link, it goes to the budget and which is the next item. It does not go to the, actually, I apologize. Been here since 8, so I'm a little tired. The budget request. Oh. What? There is something very weird with the packet in here. So my apologies for not noticing till now. Because if you click on the link for the staff report, it goes to a portion of the budget request and then a portion of the packet memo that I had created for the master plan, and then the master plan is inserted. However, I do not like being this unprepared. My apologies. I'm just scrolling through here and trying to figure out where my
I'm looking at page
packet
63
information is.
of 307, which is where I see this agenda item starting. And
Thank you.
And it's the report. The memo to town council from Hillary.
That's an additional budget request. That's the next item. That's not my actual packet item. And then it jumps to the, what appears to be the first page of the actual memo. So this does not appear to have been appropriately posted for the public's review.
Okay, well, what do you want to start with then?
Um,
How about we start with the revised draft?
sure,
master
I can
plan?
summarize it. And then Kathy, if you want to provide any direction on the incorrect publication of this packet, that would be helpful for both myself and town council. Again, my apologies that I didn't realize this until right now. So the draft master plan was revised at direction of town council pursuant to our October meeting. And generally speaking, the main areas of revision included the draft future land use map. The residential areas that were depicted in that map were changed to align with the existing zoning district map that was adopted in 2021. That should have been a part of your packet, showing your comparison of those two maps. And then the land use designations that were proposed in the master plan were amended. That has also been omitted from this packet. And so a red line was provided that showed the sections that were changed throughout to align it with our current residential zone districts. And then the other areas of the plan that were amended to align with the comments received from town council, the DDA, and the planning commission were adjusted throughout the goals, policies, and recommendations matrix, and those appear to be in this packet in their totality. The master plan draft was provided in the packet. It was published for public comment on the 18th of November. The public comment period closed on 9th of December. We received a whopping 6 comments, which was in stark contrast to the number of comments that we had received for the initial draft. Generally speaking, the comments were overall supportive. There was one comment where I believe, based on this person's address, they might have thought that we were still considering the the prior draft of the master plan. And that was the only true negative comment received. We had received one additional comment that noted they would like to see retention of high density adjacent to the base area. But generally, again, supportive of the revisions in the plan. So I'm just scrolling through here to see if that was included as well. Lengthy packet here. Okay, and the public comment was included, it appears in its entirety there. And as well as the 2021 zone district map. So
The red line version is the second page of the staff memo.
Yeah, I'm looking at the red line.
the red line version is not, what is included in your packet is not my entire memo. Unfortunately.
How many more pages of red lines are there?
I will refer back to my PDF that I'd created.
Basically, we need to repost this and revisit it on January 3rd.
That would be my recommendation because you have an incomplete agenda item, and I think it's unfair to both town council and the public, especially in a document of this magnitude and impact, to just recommend something for adoption at our next meeting because of timing. And if there's any concern regarding around my last day with the town, I have committed to finalizing the master plan regardless of where I might be employed. And I've been given permission from the county to moonlight on this if required.
So in the current scenario, put us on January 3rd and then a vote on the 17th, it seems like.
Minimum.
I believe so.
Right, because currently I think we have it slated to address this and adopt it on the third.
That the recommendation from staff was to place it on the agenda for the 3rd for adoption. And then there's also a meeting scheduled tomorrow with Planning Commission to get a recommendation for town council to adopt it at the January 3rd meeting. And provided that the memo has been published appropriately, I believe that we can still move forward with that and just change the recommendation from the 3rd to the 17th. I think that's a fairly easy adjustment. And Kathy, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this.
No, that sounds appropriate.
Great, thank
Can
you.
clarify how, just if you can guess how many more pages of red line? I'm just trying to justify $8,700 by Norris Designs changing a couple colors and adding some red lines to a document.
That is a next agenda item. Unfortunately, the memos were not published appropriately. I have 2 separate memos and 2 separate agenda items under this, and you're missing part of my my initial memo that also accompanied this. So if you'd feel more comfortable moving both items, so we can discuss them both together to the January 3rd meeting, that might be appropriate as well, considering the publication issue.
I absolutely think if we're tabling one, we have to table the other. Yeah.
They're kind of a package deal.
Seems like it.
My
Okay,
apologies.
that's all right. So is that what we're doing? Tabling?
Sure.
All right. Do we need a motion to table?
Well, are you gonna be, are you certain that January 3rd will work? For you?
Well, yeah, I already wrote the memo. I just have to change the date at this point.
Okay, so I would just table those 2 items for January 3rd,
Okay,
or move them to the agenda for the 3rd.
Move to table items 8.5 and 8.6 until the January 3rd meeting.
okay. We have a motion from Janet and a second from Roman to table agenda items 8.5 and 8.6 till the January 3rd meeting. January 3rd, 2023. Any further discussion? Tiffany?
Alec,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Steve.
Yep.
Janet,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Mayor Kimpton.
Yes. Next item is the maintenance agreement for the Slate River Bridge between the town of Crested Butte and the town of Mount Crested Butte. Craig?
This has been a much longer project than was originally anticipated. Originally, we thought we were well served to ask for an easement for the bridge, but because the bridge is sitting on an easement, they couldn't give us an easement on an easement. So they've created this maintenance agreement, and through discussion, we've ended up with a better agreement than we started out with, because town of Crested Butte is now going to be maintaining, I shouldn't say maintaining, removing the snow at the end of the season from the bridge up to the boardwalk. In the past, our crews have gone around to Crested Butte and then gone up and maintained that. So that's going to save us some time. So I think this is a good outcome of an agreement, and I recommend approval.
Anybody have questions? Essentially, we've netted out having to do a little bit less than we were having to do before,
Yes.
Yes, and there's something in writing now.
and there's something in writing. So when a future town council has some issue come up, there'll actually be some guidance on paper.
Right.
Great.
So when you ask your clerk to go research this document that doesn't exist, I'll find something.
Also that.
Move to approve the Slate River Bridge Maintenance Agreement.
Second.
Who's supposed to sign that?
Nicholas, I think it's in your folder to sign.
Okay, it must be me.
Do I need to add that? Amend
Did you
that?
amend your motion,
Yeah,
Steve?
with,
I'd like to amend my motion.
Captain Mayor.
Yeah, so authorize Nicholas to sign.
All right, move to approve the Slate River Bridge Maintenance Agreement and approve Mayor Nicholas Kempton to sign that.
Second.
We motion from Steve and a second from Roman to approve the maintenance agreement for the Slate River Bridge and authorize the mayor to sign it. Any further discussion? Tiffany?
Dwayne,
Yes.
Alec,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Steve.
Yep.
Roman,
Yes.
Mayor Kimpton.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is community grants policy. Tiffany.
So Greg and I worked together to put this policy together. I've gone back and scoured the minutes and I never received official approval for this program. I received, yes, go ahead, make these changes, but I never got an official motion. And I believe some of that kind of came out when we were doing the community grants agreement. It didn't seem like everyone was on board with it. So this is what we're proposing. If you want to move forward with the community grants, if you could approve it, if you want changes to it. And then I was also talking with Kathy a little bit earlier. The actual agreement that the nonprofits sign, I have not brought that in front of you guys to approve. And if you want the mayor to sign it or the town manager to sign it, so that will be on the January 3rd meeting. Like the actual agreement that they sign with the town.
This, the contract for services, is that what we're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yes,
The form-
that's-
Yeah, and you don't have to get into the guts of the form of agreement so much, but just we need an authorization for someone to sign it.
Okay. Questions for Tiffany on what's being proposed?
I more have comments than questions.
Okay.
If I were a nonprofit not on this list, I would wonder why somebody gets to be on this list and not my nonprofit. So I think there were reasons over time for why people are baked into our budget. But I'd like to look at a more holistic approach of how we can impact some of these organizations without singling some out. And allowing changes to those investments into those organizations. I think the way that the previous iteration of this well-intentioned community grant program was rife with issues and basically was a money grab. So I would like us to look at a more effective way of contributing to organizations.
Okay.
When you say effective way, are you kind of talking like a more defined, for lack of a better term, rubric that says what makes you a legacy grantee versus and elaborating all of that
I mean,
type of
there's
stuff?
two
or-
separate things. There's, I can track back the reasoning behind supporting the Conservation Corps as several years ago, it was tied to a lot of the work they were doing with trailhead awareness and mitigation of crowds during COVID. They were trying to get this program up off the ground. But they now have other funding streams, and the way that they're organizing the Conservation Corps, it's almost like it's a standalone entity, but it's not. It's just a matter of how they allocate funding towards that classification within their own balance sheet. So that's like saying maintenance doesn't pencil out with town hall. It's, well, we haven't put enough money into maintenance. So that's one half of it. How do we evaluate who gets to be baked into this? And then the other half is, how do we prevent somebody from simply having to apply and fit into a box to get money? And is that our role to just make a pile of money available for people to reach in and grab? Because that's how I felt the last iteration of this was.
Yeah. I like community grants because they help us build up things in the community. So I'm for programs like this. I like it. But I do think this needs elaboration relative to what are criteria, even if it's just some basic bars and understanding, but you know, where are you centrally located would be a piece. Do you serve elements of the community? We may want to just define some of these things versus leaving it a little more open-ended. But to me, this is just solidifying the program and whatnot, and we could address elaboration of the rules at a future date. Does that seem reasonable? Or?
I think by and large, except for there's this one little bit, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, that maybe you're trying to highlight too, that possibly if we think this is a good program, why aren't we just dumping those 4 organizations back into the mix to apply through that program rather than
Well, we took them out and we set them up because we were just doing it every year and it just, saved us having to approve it each year because we knew we liked it and we were good with that. And I like seeing these 4 programs continue to receive the funding that we give to them. And so I'm very comfortable with the way this is
Maybe the
raised.
names stay, but maybe the amounts and the process by which we determine the amounts and the process by which they report on where those amounts go could use some adjustment.
Well, the
It's not-
amounts do vary and it's, it comes through on the budget that Carl does.
Right, it's like
They
a
haven't.
Huh? Well, the Chamber of Commerce one has.
Yeah, but the others really haven't, and maybe the cost of grooming has changed, but the other 2 have stayed the same.
Well, the Avalanche Center, we've offered to give them more and they have said, no, they don't want it. Or they don't need it. So,
Again, that was in the past. Now they're struggling to pay their forecasters a livable wage because,
yeah,
they're.
I mean, we've asked Than and he's said he's good with the amount that we've been giving him.
Past.
I do think giving money to from our budget to something that doesn't exist in-house should require a little bit more oversight.
Excuse me, I wonder if within the community grant program, that's something like the Avalanche Center, again, we've been through this with the admissions tax grant stuff. But I wonder if something like the Avalanche Center could either get weighted more heavily or be in a special category for what is essentially, I'm gonna say it twice, for what feels like to me an essential service. The Avalanche Center, the service that they provide is an asset to everybody that lives here, whether you backcountry ski or not. The Avalanche Center consults with Water and Sand because Water and Sand has to go down to the East River pump station sometimes. And so they come in and train the Water and Sand guys how not to get killed in the avalanche down at the East River. They do similar things for the fire department and stuff like that. So using that as an example, maybe these ones, instead of just being a ongoing budget item, could just be more of a special category that gets special consideration. And then maybe that would be easier than to compare it to other nonprofits. And then also, like you mentioned, if a nonprofit is like, why are they special? That would perhaps illustrate why we consider that a special category.
Yeah, and in that group of 4, I mean, paying the Nordic Center to groom the rec path for us. I mean, that's something we need them to do.
Yeah, all of the things for sure.
So I really see it
So-
as a parallel to the admissions tax grant and the things that we've done to try to tweak that. And then, I think we should also have reporting from these folks. And I think, same thing too, an annual review, because maybe the Conservation Corps, or I don't even want to single someone out, but maybe one of this group, things have changed. Their costs have gone up or down, or their funding stream has changed, or the need for their service has changed, or other people are providing the same service, whatever it may be. But I think it's just more a matter of how, what bucket or what category we put it in within the community grant program.
So would the council like to approve the community grant program and then elaborate rules, or do you want to table this and do either a work session or a subcommittee to establish reporting criteria for legacy grantees? The details.
I would have a mind for getting everything laid out before we approve. And I would love the idea for a special meeting to spend time on it.
Or work
Or
session.
a work
Sorry,
session.
I'd love to vet different scenarios and try to get ahead of the admissions tax fitting into the box jig that
Yeah,
some organizations.
and that's a
have gotten
valid,
good
that's
at.
a valid concern.
Yeah, for like granting organizations, right? That's something they deal with, because it's not just, do you fit all of our stuff? There's considerations of, is this a established program, or are you creating it from scratch to get our money? There's like other ways of kind of doing it. So they have a mind for really stopping that. So we probably should too.
Killer.
Okay, well, thank you. I will work on. If you have any strong feelings, comments about the program, if you could email me those so I can start putting much more thought into it. And then I'll put some stuff together and create a work and set a time for a work session for you guys to really dive deep and we can revamp the whole thing how you guys really want it. Does that work?
Thank you for your work on it, Tiffany.
Still didn't get my motion for it.
Well, but, yeah,
That's
well,
okay.
yeah,
Close.
We're
We're
close.
closer.
and thank you for your work on it.
It's very well intentioned.
Yeah. All right, next item is ordinance number 14, series 2022, an ordinance of Town Council of the Town of Mount Crested Butte, Colorado, summarizing expenditures and revenues for each fund and adopting a budget for the Town of Mount Crested Butte, Colorado for the calendar year beginning on the first day of January 2023 and ending on the last day of December 2023. Second reading, Carl.
Yeah, this second reading, really no changes, nothing. I don't think I've ever changed anything. I don't even know if you can for the second reading, but it's all the same.
Move to approve ordinance number 14, series 2022.
Second. So we have motion.
Second.
We have
Yeah.
motion from Steve and a second from Alec to approve ordinance number 14, series 2022. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Tiffany?
Roman,
Yes.
Alec,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Mayor Kempton.
Yes. All right, next item is town managers report and discussion items. Greg?
We're the entertainment district, we're still working on it because we're getting very close to the Christmas season. Tara did not want this thing going through right at the Christmas season. She called it their Super Bowl. And that it's just gonna get too wild for the next couple weeks to be working on a policy. But the plan is to put together a meeting with the license holders or managers sometime immediately after the first of the year. I already put out an email asking if any of them had any questions or comments. I haven't received anything back at this point, but this would just be one last step to answer any questions before this would be submitted to you for first reading. And the intention is to probably do that on the 17th.
Great.
Because if we meet after the first of the year, that's not going to happen before the third.
Yep.
And just to clarify, didn't all the liquor license holders already have input and one of them expressed discontent with the approach?
Initially, but he hasn't followed up with that. So I think that that's been resolved.
Copy, okay. So some of this feels like maybe it's already been done, but
Yeah,
Might
this
as
is
well
just
be.
like one last effort to see if there's anything out there and make sure everybody knows what this thing says and what it does. One of the things I brought up in the last meeting is this group is going to control the open consumption area. It's not just one of them. And right now CBMR pretty much owns all of the property, the open property. And so in all likelihood, they're going to want to lease that to this promotional association. And Tara asked if it would be possible to also name the TCCA as the promotional association rather than creating a whole nother organization in the base area, because there's already quite a few of them. And so I think their attorneys are just going to check into whether that's possible. If it's not, they will have to still form an association. One thing to keep in mind for the town perspective, though, is once the ordinance is adopted, it's this board that manages the open consumption area, not the town. So they decide when the events occur, how they're managed, how security is provided, all that kind of stuff. Because they are all individually responsible for their following state liquor code. And so they're responsible as a group. This is not something the town wants to jump into and start managing their liquor licenses.
Cool.
Yes.
I just have two clarification questions. So the first being, CBMR is going to lease this to the association, so like,
That
if you
has to-
want to take part in this new area, you have to pay in or something?
Well, I don't know what the lease would be, but you can't, my guess is that CBMR is going to want this association to insure against anything that would happen in events.
Exactly.
You can't insure something you have no control over.
Yeah, it's a way to spread the liability around amongst the liquor license holders. Right now, there's all these liquor license holders, but CBMR owns the property on which
Spaces in
The-
between.
the problem might happen. And so that would put the burden on them kind of unfairly, and really it needs to be spread out amongst all of them. And the lease is the way to accomplish that, so that everybody can contribute to insurance and things like that.
So then my second question is, what about events that happen in the base area, if the town is the one putting on something at the stage? Do we have to then pay this association for the privilege of using their special area for open consumption?
I have a policy drawn up for the TCCA that they have looked at. And it requires that anytime there's an event that the town and CBMR or the TCCA are involved in, there will be a written agreement so that we understand all of the parts and pieces of what the relationship is, what the expectations are on both sides, what the rules are, all that kind of stuff. But no, I can't imagine why managing an event there would cost the town more money, because there's still, all the licensees gain quite a bit by being able to sell liquor into that entire crowd.
I'm just thinking about any additional fees that might be produced from this new district that, hey, if you want to have an event here, you gotta pay up if you want to freely do whatever, you know?
If push came to shove, we could move the event.
Yeah, and I think the incentive for them is to be able to sell booze at the thing. So
Okay.
that's the attraction for them.
The ad tax grant program amendments, I just wanted to report that we pulled that off the agenda for this time, primarily just because it was getting so full.
Yep.
And so now it's going to be on January 3rd, so I just wanted to give you a heads up. The LMS garage, the attorney put together an agreement for transferring the ownership of the LMS garage to the HOA. So it's going to be presented to them. They're going to consider it and determine whether they want to do it or not. There really is no need for the TCCA to be managing that garage. Right now it's cost without benefit. And there is benefit to the LMS HOA. So hopefully that's something that can be worked on in the near future. And then I just wanted to report on here, if you're interested, they were delivering the blocks of ice last week and they're going to be carving them. And if you haven't seen it before, that's a pretty cool process, the way that they carve ice. So
I went down and looked at them today. They're cool.
they really are. And then we talked about, just kind of informally at this point, about changing the agenda development process, where depending on where you want to make the break, but for a lot of issues, starting them out in a work session so that you don't feel like you're under any pressure to make a motion or approve something. And when you're ready to vote on it, then you would decide to move it to the regular agenda. So it gives you more time to discuss and contemplate what is being put before you, rather than something being put on just for a decision that evening.
So I think two ways, like we could have an agenda item about how items get on the agenda. But all joking aside, there's a couple other pieces to this. I mean, I like this idea generally. I can tell you all that I've been working to try to improve the order of our items. You know, some meetings like tonight just are what they are. They're big old mean monsters of meetings, and some of those are going to be inevitable. But I have been trying really hard to do that. I've also been trying really hard to make sure that things get on the agenda organically, like things get on the agenda because somebody wanted it to be on the agenda. Occasionally we have items that just seem to magically appear out of nowhere and nobody seems to know how they got on there. And so I'm working really hard that when something comes up to find out who's the proponent of it, who's driving the bus to get this on the agenda, why is it on the agenda, is now the right time, and all of those things. And so I've had a bunch of other thoughts surrounding how things get on the agenda, but I think the question that Greg is asking you here is just in general, would you like to have more work sessions? Okay, well, how about this? How about, go ahead.
What if it's just in the report and it comes up with, hey, here are some things that we've been discussing. What do you guys think about this? I mean, it can just be a manager's report.
Well, you know, to my point about things get on the agenda, you know, sometimes I've seen some towns do it, and definitely like whenever legislation comes up, you know, there's always like a little bit like who wanted it, who's the proponent of this, and who asked that it be on the agenda. But how about this? Since it's late, speaking of monster meetings, how about y'all just think about that a little bit? And
Could I make one?
of course.
So work session doesn't have to mean at 4 or 5 or whatever before the meeting. It could just be agenda item, discussion of X, no action requested.
Yes,
And you talk it through during the course of the meeting.
could
So-
still start at 6.
Mhm.
Yep,
Thank you for that clarification.
yes, yes.
So just add to your pondering.
Yeah, and again, please keep that in mind, and when I talk with you all, as I do, I hope that you'll remind me and I'll remember that we talk about this bit. Fair enough? All right, is that it, Greg?
Yes.
Okay, next item is clerk's report. Tiffany.
So we have never done a clerk's report. Jill never did them. I've never done them. But after my last conference, a couple of things, I was like, maybe I should start doing a clerk's report. Clerk's report. So this one's a bit longer. I did my best to summarize 2022. I know I am missing stuff in there. Kind of highlights all the different hats that I wear as well, and the different things that I do for the town as well as other organizations.
I thought it was great. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, I did too. I love the depth of
Yeah.
info on that. I don't know. Are you planning on doing this every meeting? Or just
I'll do a quarterly
by me?
report.
Okay, cool.
I think a quarterly report, and because this is 2022, it was definitely much longer
Yeah.
than a quarterly.
Yeah, to me, in the quarterly is almost like a quarterly report on the state of STRs would probably be helpful in us elaborating and growing the regulations, because seeing some of these comparatives and understanding the number of licenses, how many aren't renewing, where there's issues in the program, I think can help us in cleaning that up.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
found that helpful.
And Tiffany, I'll just reiterate, great report, and also wanted to mention, thanks for taking such an active role in the town clerk stuff and continuing your professional development and all that.
I found a job I like.
Well, it's great. It's good to see you taking on the extra stuff and getting the continuing education and all that.
Thank you.
Were any dogs shot in your report? I see 4 dog related. I wonder if they were following up on the DDA's survey.
Wait,
What?
oh,
the
municipal
last
court,
page.
4 dog-related tickets.
Yeah. All right,
Related.
we don't have a finance report. Next is marketing and events report. And so does anybody have comments or questions for that?
No, enjoyed the event. It was splendid.
The Crested Butte Mountain Theater was very happy to participate.
Cool. We don't have a parks report. We do have a police report. Anybody have questions or comments for the police report?
No, but I think I have something
And I'm sorry, I skipped the community development report. I apologize. So let's go back to that.
Questions on community development report, pretty standard report for.
So the Abbey's not opening this winter.
So I talked to Todd about that this morning. They just submitted their mechanical plans either today or yesterday. We anticipate that we'll be receiving additional architectural plans for the interior remodel. We know that they had hoped to open at some point this winter. They also need to submit a construction management plan. It's really difficult if you're doing an interior remodel to gut the inside without an appropriate dumpster facility, trucks and that sort of thing, especially during Christmas holidays. So still kind of waiting for them to sort that out and provide that information to us in a way that's acceptable to maintain function of the base area.
Do they know you don't need a kitchen to serve beer?
Or painkillers for that matter.
Yeah.
But, so I will pass that information along.
All right.
Thanks for everything. Good luck on the new thing and all that
Well,
good stuff.
hold on, we're still not.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were at the end of that report, no?
Don't want to make it what you have to say awkward. Hillary, the deed restriction amendments that are being done is one of those allowing for say a water and sanitation district or fire department to buy a deed restricted unit. That's one of the things that's been mentioned
That
all
is
along.
part
And I
of
just wanted to
that.
make sure that was still being included.
That is still being included to where an employer, so there'd be two categories effectively. One would be an actual employee, and then the other would be an employer in the valley that would then be able to rent the units to a qualified individual. So that is, the last we had left that off was right before I left vacation. So I'm not sure where
Okay.
we're at in the edits, but we did have some pretty substantial edits to the last version, so that was finalized.
Okay, and then I just wanted to comment on the staff report talks about the OVRR meeting on 12/14/22 and noticeable lack of representation from elected officials from Mount CB. I was planning to attend those meetings, but there were two scheduled for the week. And it was really confusing which one was the correct meeting. And so I personally had to make a choice as to which one I could attend. And then the one that I could attend got canceled the night before. And so that's why me as an elected official was not at that meeting. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Sure.
And you're the staff, he is the.
I am,
representative.
and I do attend those meetings and I have missed very few of them, if any. But there was a significant scheduling snafu and a cancellation the night before. And so the one of the week that I could attend is the one that got canceled. And so that's why there was no one there from the town.
Thank you for the clarification.
Has staff looked at reaching out to MetRec regarding the rec path?
I am not directly involved. I think it should be noted that this is a department report and I did not write the report in its entirety. And that would be Jeff, capital projects
Okay.
manager who provided that update. I'm not sure if NetRec has been within or if he's frankly been introduced ahead of yet. So I will go ahead and send an email now, connecting the two and suggesting that he reach out to Hedda to possibly
Well,
coordinate.
that wouldn't be Hedda anymore.
Sorry.
What's his name?
He was heavily involved in the campaign.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but yeah.
Anybody else? Questions? I sent out to you all the CML report. That's something that in the future is gonna be generated by CML, so it'll be much better than any reporting that I could do. And so, hope you guys will take a look at those. It often gives a preview of what's coming down the line for us. Some other towns somewhere this issue has popped up for them, and it might be 2 years out for us, but it's just kind of a little bit of a heads up. So
Coming to a town near you.
coming to a town near you, exactly. All right, and Steve, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off before you were about
Just gonna say, Hillary, thanks so much for all the efforts working for town, and hope best of luck with the new gig.
Here. Yeah, thanks, Hillary. Good luck. I'm sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
The store committee met and the survey and interviews that were done with stakeholders is complete. And we as a committee discussed the future of STORE and what it should be involved in and what its interests are. That's ongoing. I also brought up at the end of the meeting the Chamber's initiative, and it's out in the ether for consideration for future agendas. Might be January, who knows? So that exists. And then I don't think I reported on this the last meeting, but the DDA did meet, and due to how the elevations request materialized, we were looking at revamping the entire process and of how we grant money. And one of the things that I encouraged in the process is having 2 meetings. So we're not sitting on the hot seat trying to think in real time and see if somebody fits into a box or they don't have the answer to a question, and they can go back and research our question and come back with an answer. And it's much less shooting from the hip. So that might be something we could consider moving.
Sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody else have reports? Thank you, by the way, Roman, for that. Anybody else have reports?
I just had something to add.
Go ahead, Steve.
What is the status? I'd love to see us terminate the agreement we made for hanging the Christmas lights that never got hung. We've kind of missed the window.
Christmas.
Didn't we sign off on doing the Christmas lights at the entrance to town? I thought we approved that.
No.
Oh, okay. I remember that on the agenda.
We did talk about that. The cost was considerable.
Yeah, I remember it was
and
like
we
$2
didn't
grand
do
a
it.
tree.
But the staff did order some lights to put on the trees out here, and then we couldn't get them to stop blinking. And we have requirements in town that you can't have blinking lights right next to the
Yeah.
street, and so we had to take them
Appreciate
down.
that. Cool.
But
Okay, I was
they
mistaken.
tried
Yeah.
everything they could think of to make them stop blinking, and they just wouldn't do it.
Well, I am impressed with the mileage out of the whatever lights, so maybe we see how long. that
So
goes.
it is
Cool,
something
okay.
we want to pursue again. I think they look nice. They just. they're
50-year anniversary seems like a great time to really
Yeah.
splurge on
I
lights.
feel bad for Bobby. It's sounded like a tremendous headache. to
Yeah.
deal with.
Yeah.
Second. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.